imagine making a mistake so catastrophic that you genuinely believe you have just single-handedly ruined a divine mission.
Yeah, that is a heavy thought.
Right. Like, there is no cloud backup, there are no carbon copies. You've just lost the only physical copy of a 116-page manuscript.
And, a manuscript dictated by a 22-year-old day laborer who is claiming to literally translate the Word of God.
Exactly. And the guy who lost the pages had basically just bankrupted his entire sprawling estate to fund the project. So, welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are unpacking a really staggering piece of history, the infamous loss of the 116 manuscript pages of the Book of Mormon.
It is such an intense story.
It really is. And our mission today is to explore the historical accounts, the personal essays, and specifically this set of revelations found in Doctrine and Covenants sections 3, 5, 10, 17, and 19. We want to really dig into this narrative of human frailty, lost manuscripts, and staggering redemption.
I am so glad we are covering this because it is a historical hinge point,
Right.
where one lost stack of paper just fundamentally alters a religious movement. So my goal is to help you, the listener, really connect the dots between these intense, on-the-ground historical events and the broader themes.
The big picture stuff.
Right. The tension between free will and divine omniscience, the mechanics of the translation, and really just how people navigate catastrophic failure.
So let's just jump right in. Let's start with the two main players here because, the contrast between them is kind of jarring right out of the gate.
Absolutely.
On the one hand, you have Joseph Smith, late 1820s, young, impoverished, essentially a day laborer in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you have Martin Harris.
Yeah, and the sources describe Martin Harris as this 45-year-old, highly prosperous, widely respected farmer in Palmyra.
He's doing well for himself.
Very well. He owned 320 acres of prime land. He was known for being a shrewd businessman, very frugal. He was an established, successful man of the world.
Which is wild to think about. It's like, think of a Silicon Valley venture capitalist today, right? Somebody with a massive portfolio, pristine reputation, and they decide to risk everything on an unproven kid with some wild tech idea operating out of a garage.
That's a great way to look at it.
But I have to push back here because why would a shrewd 45-year-old businessman risk his reputation on a story about ancient gold plates and angels? That seems completely contrary to his practical nature.
Well, it does, but you have to look at his background. Martin was deeply religious. Some of his neighbors actually labeled him I think the phrase was visionary fanatic.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he was very open to the supernatural, but, and this is key, he was not gullible. He constantly tested Joseph's claims.
He wanted proof.
Exactly. Like early on, he gave Joseph a $50 silver gift to help him and his wife Emma move to Harmony, Pennsylvania.
Right, because they were trying to escape hostile neighbors who
Yes.
wanted to steal the plates.
Exactly. And Martin called it a gift to do the Lord's work, but the accounts show he was watching very closely to see how Joseph handled that money. It was a test.
And the testing doesn't stop there. It actually escalates. Like early 1828, Martin travels to New York City to get a second opinion on the plates.
Or at least on the copied characters, right. He takes this transcript of characters and visits some of the top scholars in America.
Who does he see?
He sees Luther Bradish, Samuel Mitchell, and then, crucially, Charles Anthon, who was a prestigious linguistics professor at Columbia College.
And the climax of that Anthon visit is just fascinating in the sources. According to Martin, Anthon looks at the characters, verifies them as ancient, and actually writes a certificate of authenticity.
Yeah, he writes it out, hands it to Martin, but then the whole interaction flips as Martin is walking out the door.
Right.
Anthon calls him back and asks, essentially, wait, how did this young man actually find these plates?
And Martin, being honest, says, an angel of God revealed it unto him.
And Anthon immediately demands the certificate back, tears it to pieces. Wow.
Tells Martin there are no such things as ministering angels, and warns him that he's being defrauded.
Which, if you're a listener sitting at home, you're probably siding with Anthon on this one. If I'm a scholar and you tell me an angel gave you a book, I'm going to say, okay, bring me the physical plate so I can examine the metallurgy myself. Why didn't he just do that?
Well, he did ask for that, but Martin explained that part of the plates were sealed, and Joseph was strictly forbidden by God from showing them, to which Anthon famously says, I cannot read a sealed book.
And this is where it gets crazy, because for Joseph and Martin, that phrase, I cannot read a sealed book, they viewed that as a literal word-for-word fulfillment of a prophecy in Isaiah.
Yes, Isaiah chapter 29. So instead of shattering Martin's faith, this trip actually cemented it.
He's all in now.
He reasons that if the smartest scholars can't do it, Joseph has to rely on God. It was the ultimate proof of a divine mandate for him.
But the irony is, while Martin comes back totally convinced, his wife is drawing the exact opposite conclusion back home.
Oh, Lucy Harris.
Yeah.
We have to talk about Lucy, because her psychology is the absolute catalyst for the disaster that's coming.
She was terrified. And honestly, her anxiety makes sense. She feared her husband was being conned out of their estate. And early on, the sources say she had actually offered to help finance the translation herself.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and she felt completely shut out and humiliated when Joseph refused to show her the plates. And you've got to think about her position as a woman in the 1820s. Her entire security was tied to Martin's property.
So watching him pour resources into invisible plates.
Must have been terrifying. And she became physically intrusive. The accounts say she would go to the Smiths' home, rifle through their cupboards, search their trunks, just desperately trying to find these plates to expose the fraud.
And there's this really poignant detail about her in the historical record. She was suffering from progressive hearing loss at the time.
Right.
So she couldn't always make out what people were saying, which fueled this intense paranoia. She thought people were constantly mocking her in hushed tones.
Which just amplifies the desperation. So Martin is caught in this massive pressure cooker. He's got his growing faith, but he's got a fiercely skeptical wife. So he is constantly seeking empirical validation to justify this to her.
Which leads to my favorite detail in the sources, the seer stone test.
Oh, the rock swap.
The rock swap. Let's quickly explain the translation mechanics, because Joseph wasn't just staring at a book like a normal translator. He used physical instruments, a seer stone, or the Urim and Thummim.
Okay.
He put the stone in a hat to block the light, put his face in, and the word supposedly appeared spiritually.
Right. So Martin decides to test this scientifically. They are taking a break by the river, and Martin secretly finds a regular rock that looks just like the seer stone.
And he swaps it out.
He swaps it out. He later said he did it to stop the mouths of fools who claimed Joseph was just memorizing text and reciting it.
So Joseph comes back, puts his face in the hat, and just stops.
Yeah. He says, Martin, what is the matter? All is as dark as Egypt. He couldn't translate a single word until Martin confessed and gave the real stone back.
Which perfectly shows where Martin is at. He's acting as a scribe for a divine text, but constantly needing physical proof.
Exactly. And that mindset sets the stage for the spring of 1828. It is just a nightmare scenario.
A total pressure cooker. Joseph's wife, Emma, goes through a horrific, traumatic childbirth. The baby dies, and Emma is hovering near death. Joseph is by her bedside day and night.
And meanwhile, they have translated 116 pages of manuscript, what they called the Book of Lehi, and Martin is just getting hammered by Lucy, who's demanding proof of where the money is going.
So Martin begs Joseph to let him take the 116 pages to Palmyra to appease his wife.
Right.
Which, again, is like lending out the only handwritten, unbacked-up copy of your master's thesis. Joseph prays about it. God says no. Martin begs him to ask again. Joseph asks again. God says no.
Yeah.
I have to ask, if you get a definitive no twice from God, why on earth do you ask a third time?
You really have to look at the human element here. Joseph felt a massive debt of gratitude. Martin was his only financial backer, an older father figure who stood by him when everyone else mocked him. Joseph just desperately wanted to ease his friend's burden.
So he asks a third time.
And permission is finally granted, but with incredibly strict conditions. Martin makes a solemn covenant to only show those pages to specific family members.
His wife, parents, brother, and sister-in-law, I think.
Exactly. So Martin makes the promise and heads to New York.
And Joseph stays in Pennsylvania to nurse Emma. After a couple of grueling weeks, she's recovering, but she has this intense dread about the manuscript. She basically forces Joseph to go to New York to check on Martin.
And this scene is just agonizing. Joseph arrives at his parents' house in New York. They send for Martin to come for breakfast. Hours pass. The tension is unbearable. Finally, Martin appears, walking slowly, eyes glued to the ground.
He doesn't even come inside at first, right?
You know, he gets to the gate, sits on the fence, and just pulls his hat down over his eyes. When he finally comes in, he sits at the breakfast table, picks up his utensils, and then just drops them.
Oh, man.
He grabs his head and cries, "I have lost my soul! I have lost my soul!" He had broken the covenant, showed the pages to other people, and they were gone. Stolen.
And Joseph's reaction is visceral. The accounts say he leaps up, groans, all is lost,
Yeah.
and just paces the floor weeping. He thinks God is going to destroy him, and he's terrified the news is literally going to kill Emma when he goes back.
Total devastation. Joseph assumes the work is over. But what he didn't comprehend was that this exact disaster had been anticipated centuries earlier.
Let's talk about the fallout, though, because there are immediate consequences. The Urim and Thummim and the plates are taken away.
Yeah.
He loses his gift to translate.
Yes. We see this in Doctrine and Covenants, Section 3. The language is intense. Joseph is severely chastised. The Lord tells him directly that he feared man more than God. He let social pressure override divine instruction. But crucially, the revelation also promises mercy if he repents.
But that doesn't solve the problem of the missing pages. Where did they go? This is where Doctrine and Covenants Section 10 pulls back the curtain on a literal conspiracy.
Right. It explains that thieves have stolen the pages with malicious intent. They are waiting for Joseph to retranslate the missing Book of Lehi.
Because if he retranslates it, their plan is to take the stolen pages, subtly alter the handwritten words to contradict Joseph's new version, and then publish both.
Exactly. They wanted to say, look, he couldn't even translate the exact same document twice. The whole thing is a fraud. It was a brilliantly designed trap.
But logically, why wouldn't God just give Joseph a perfect photographic memory of the first draft? Like, retranslate it perfectly, word for word. Then when the thieves bring out their altered copy, any expert could look at the original ink, see the scratch marks where it was altered, and Joseph is vindicated.
Because that would just create endless academic controversy and doubt. Instead, the divine workaround was put in place over 1,000 years earlier.
Okay, explain this backup plan.
So the lost 116 pages were the Book of Lehi, which was an abridgment of secular history. But centuries earlier, God had prompted another ancient prophet, Nephi, to create a parallel record covering the exact same timeline.
The plates of Nephi.
Yes. And this alternate record had a much greater spiritual focus. So the Lord tells Joseph, don't retranslate the Book of Lehi, translate the plates of Nephi instead.
It is literally a cosmic cloud backup.
It really is.
It's like a software developer foreseeing a hard drive crash 1,000 years in advance, quietly writing a backup file to a hidden server so the project doesn't die. It's anti-fragile.
And it beautifully highlights that theological tension between God's omniscience, his all-knowing nature, and human free will. God didn't force Joseph to give in. He didn't force Martin to break his promise. But anticipating human frailty, he prepared an alternate route. Like Section 3 says, the works and the designs and the purposes of God cannot be frustrated.
So Joseph repents, gets the plates back, and resumes work in April 1829. And he has a new scrub, Oliver Cowdery.
Right.
And the speed at which they work from here on out is just mind-boggling.
It really defies conventional literary creation. According to the timeline, they finished the vast majority of the Book of Mormon in about 65 working days.
65 days. The sources calculate that to roughly 10 translated pages a day. How is that mechanically possible? Even a seasoned author today, with a computer, an outline, and Google, producing 10 final draft pages a day is like a nearly impossible cognitive load.
It's astounding, and the accounts from people in the room are vital here. Emma Smith, who also scribed a bit, explicitly stated later that Joseph used no books or manuscripts. He dictated hour after hour.
And she noted that after meals or chores, he would come back and seamlessly re-enter the dictation stream exactly where he left off.
Yeah, without ever asking to have the previous sentences read back to him. That kind of cognitive continuity for a narrative with hundreds of characters and interlocking timelines is just incredible. He was dictating a final draft in real time.
So while this miracle of speed is happening, what about Martin Harris? Does he just fade away as the cautionary tale?
Not at all. This is where redemption really shines in the sources. Martin sincerely repents and comes back into the fold. He actually becomes one of the 3 witnesses to the Book of Mormon, alongside Oliver Cowdery and David Whitmer.
So he finally gets the physical proof he was agonizing over.
Yes. After intense prayer and feeling completely inadequate, he reports that an angel showed him the plates. He literally cries out, "'Tis enough! 'Tis enough! Mine eyes have beheld!"
And just to note, the sources say 8 other witnesses also eventually saw and handled them.
Exactly. So the manuscript is secure, the witnesses have seen it, now they have to print it.
Which brings up the money problem again. They go to Egbert B. Grandin, a printer in Palmyra. He agrees to print 5,000 copies, which is a huge run back then, but he wants $3,000.
And he demands a guarantee of payment before he even buys the type to start. $3,000 in 1829 was astronomical. It was the value of a massive, prosperous farm.
It's like someone asking you to liquidate your entire 401k and mortgage your house for a self-published book.
Yeah.
And that burden falls right back on Martin Harris, because he's the only one with assets.
And we see this addressed directly in D&C Section 19. The Lord speaks to Martin with incredible weight. Thou shalt not covet thine own property, but impart it freely to the printing of the Book of Mormon.
Talk about the ultimate test of conviction. After all his doubt, the lost pages, he is asked to put everything on the line. And he does it. August 1829, he mortgages his 320-acre farm. His neighbors must have thought he was insane.
Oh, definitely. And the pressure didn't stop there. When the book was printed in March 1830, it didn't sell well at first. The sources show Martin panicking, walking the streets, trying to sell books. The reality of his sunk costs hits him, and he actually begs Joseph for a new commandment to fix his financial ruin.
But Joseph just tells him to fulfill the commandment he already has.
Right. And Martin followed through. He sold enough property to pay the debt in full. He became the crucial financial pillar that allowed the early church to exist.
It's just a masterclass in comeback and redemption. Which brings us back to you, the listener. The takeaways here are powerful. We see this concept of anti-fragility, right? The works of God cannot be frustrated by the mistakes of men. We see the real psychological danger of fearing man more than God.
Absolutely.
And we see that sincere repentance restores purpose. Joseph finished the translation, and Martin bet his entire farm on it.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a lingering thought to ponder. We know those 116 pages were essentially a secular historical account of the early Nephite people.
Right.
If those original pages were somehow discovered in an attic trunk today, how would reading that alternate historical perspective change or reinforce our understanding of the history we've just discussed?
Man, finding that would be the historical discovery of the century. It really makes you think about how one single mistake can ripple through history, but also how recovering from it can build something even more resilient. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the sources. We will see you next time.